Cool. We are live. Welcome back. This is part 2 of Biohacks that will force your brain to focus. So if you caught last week, we shared some quick tips that in the moment you can use to get yourself into focus, into flow. This week, we're going to be looking at what are the longer term things that you can do that will help you get and stay in flow every day. So we're going to be going over kind of a similar format, things you can take, things you can do, different ways to really help you find that consistent, focused state. So, all right.
And that's your dog in the background, huh?
Yes, apparently Nikki is
who wants to be in on the
excited.
action.
She is excited for this episode. All right.
All right. Do you want to quickly recap like what we covered? Like maybe spend like 3 minutes doing that. Like just go over the notes.
Absolutely.
Last week what we did is we went over all the immediate things that you can do to actually improve your focus. And there are so many things out there that we didn't even cover everything that we could for even immediate focus. And it's going to be the same today. But what I tried to do in both of these was to introduce some things that you might have heard of before, to introduce some things you've never heard before, and then some that you might have possibly tried. And so that's what we did for that. And maybe just, we have the people watching on Instagram as well, because we're doing that through the phone and trying that instead of Yellow Dog.
Yeah.
And give that dog
we've got
a treat or something.
I'm going to have to give her a Slim Jim. And we've got full notes from last week's episode. If you would like these, join us in the Apex Human Facebook group. Just type Apex Human into that search box. We'll put a link in the comments, but you can get access to the full notes from last week. You can see them on the screen here of some of the different things that will help you get into that focus space.
And so you might be wondering, why are we even talking about biohacking and ways of using nootropics and biohacking to increase your focus? What we talked about last week was two things. One, why we're talking about focus. And we're talking about focus because at the end of the day, your focus determines what you do and how well you do it. And that will determine how well your business does. Why we're talking about it specifically now is that we've developed this new platform for Steal Our Winners, which is, where we deliver strategies and tactics that are currently crushing it online in marketing and sales that most people don't know about. What we're now doing with this new platform that we're about to release to the world in a couple of weeks, we have our lifetime members going in now. What we are going to start a new channel, and the new channel is Apex Human. And we're going to use the same AI technology to provide solutions that currently do not exist in human optimization. And so this is a bigger project than actually Steal Our Winners. We're working with a lot of top people and influencers, et cetera, in the biohacking and nootropics and human optimization space. And so this is our way of just kind of creating some initial content for the channel. And so we'll be doing a lot of these. We'll also be starting a podcast as well. And so this is really, right now, just some grounding material that we're going over. We're going to do stuff with this, have it cut up and be different solutions for different things, which will make sense to some of you that know what Steal Our Winners is and might not make sense for others of you. But the idea is that we want to, with Apex Human, which is what the name of the channel is called, what we want to do there at the end of the day is really synthesize as well as condense like the information that is only relevant to you, so that you don't have to listen to everything out there or read everything out there or watch everything out there. That the AI system can know you, and then based on how you respond, can know whether the strategy that is being recommended to you for the specific issues that you want to get better or improve in, if that strategy is not advanced enough, not aggressive enough, or whatever, right? You can tell the system that, and then it will ultimately give you something of what you're looking for. So we're working on all this right now, but today we're going to talk about focus. We talked about immediate focus, and we went over, why don't you just run down the different nootropics that we went over? for this, and then we'll take it from there, I guess.
Absolutely. Let me pull my screen share back up here.
Okay. And for those who are watching on Instagram, if you want to participate, you got to be on Facebook or on YouTube or LinkedIn. I guess, no, but we don't get the messages from LinkedIn. We do get the messages from YouTube and Facebook. Yep. Cool.
We can see your comments and chat. So say hi, let us know you're here, and let us know what your biggest questions are about focus. So last week we covered some of the basics.
Go ahead.
We good?
Yeah.
What's necessary before you optimize, so getting enough sleep, getting exercise, some basics about how your brain works and how these nootropics affect it, so that you understand what you're doing. When you start tweaking your brain, you'll want to know what exactly you're playing with there. And then some things to take. So we talked about caffeine, nicotine, ginseng, bromontane. Rich, correct me if I mispronounce any of these. Huperzine
A. Yeah, Huperzine A.
We talked about racetam. So
racetam. Yeah, racetam.
There we go.
Yes.
I'm a reader.
So aniracetam,
aniracetam,
oxiracetam, phenylpiracetam, fasiracetam. Yep. And a few others.
Let's see. And then we talked about, alpha GPC or CDP choline, exogenous ketones, some prescription options, energy drinks.
Right.
We talked about things that you could, go ahead.
Yeah. And just on that, like with the nootropics, we also talked about like brain chemistry, like what are the primary, we're not going to go into that now, but like it's in the notes. And if you guys want the notes, what do they have to do? Just
join the Facebook group.
Okay, join the Facebook group.
Apex Human on Facebook.
Got it. And Apex Human on Facebook. And but what we do is we talk about the main neurotransmitters, because you need to understand these three major neurotransmitters to really understand how nootropics work, and then to make sure that you're getting the results that you want. So I gave an example, like my friend Maxwell Finn, who has sold a lot of Alpha Brains on it, on Facebook and on other platforms. I asked him if he took it, and he said when he took it, he would get headaches, and that's because he doesn't have enough acetylcholine in his system. You'll get a headache when you use certain nootropics because one of the ways they work is that they release more acetylcholine, and so if you don't know that, then you don't know that it's working, but you don't have enough of a base, and so it can't do what you want it to do without enough choline in your system, and that comes from eggs, and you can also supplement it with something like alpha GPC and stuff like that. In addition, we also talked about, and then I think we won't go into all of the things because it'll take too long, but we talked about bromontane, which is my favorite probably nootropic out there, and bromontane is really unique. I gave it to a friend of mine. I'll leave the names out just because you'll understand in a second. I gave it to a friend of mine who plays a lot of golf. He plays in golf tournaments all the time, like every weekend. He won his first tournament taking bromontane last week, taking bromontane before the tournament. And that makes sense because bromontane is, one, a stimulant. It, two, gives you more endurance. And three, it actually also is an anti-anxiety. So it's a very unusual substance because it's an anti-anxiety that also lifts you up. And generally, those two things are in conflict with one another. But in this particular case, right, because it's an anti-anxiety, he was very calm and yet focused, which is how you have to be when you're playing golf. And I have my girlfriend, Kim, has problems sleeping and registers no deep sleep, but on most nights. But I happen to think there's a twinge of anxiety and overthinking that's involved in that problem. And the 2 times when she's taken bromontane, she's had like an hour or an hour and a half of deep sleep, which compared to 0 is pretty fantastic. And I'm just constantly blown away at the positive results that causes. And you want to take like 50 milligrams or 100 milligrams of that. I take 150, and it probably is on the high side. So with that said,
I take 50.
Okay.
And I really like that one.
And Kim takes 50, but she spaces it out. So it's different for each person, but start small. So today we're talking about things that you can do for longer term, right? Like, so all the things that we covered last week were just things that if you needed to focus like right now, what you could do. But, there are a lot of things that you can do that increase your ability to focus long term. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And so the very first substance that I wanted to talk about is a substance that a lot of people don't realize is actually a very effective nootropic. And that's primarily because people use it for other things besides nootropics. They use it actually to put on strength and put on muscle is the primary thing that most people I would think of this. But what the first nootropic that we want to talk about for focus is creatine. And so I will kind of walk you through some of my notes here to kind of talk about creatine. So for cognitive issues, creatine can improve mitochondrial function. As mitochondria gets damaged, an aging chemical known as lipofuscin accumulates in the brain. Okay, that accumulates in the brain, and that has been correlated with Alzheimer's. It's also been correlated with Parkinson's. Creatine has been shown to reduce and prevent the buildup of this lipofuscin, right, that accumulates in the brain. In addition, creatine has also been shown to increase blood flow to the brain. So as we age and undergo stress, we get less blood to our actual brain when we're stressed or when, as we get older. And so creatine, by increasing the blood flow to the brain, compensates for that, right? It also prevents mental fatigue. It also boosts cognition. And it's one of the most effective cognitive enhancers out there. Let me tell you other reasons why as well. Creatine has been shown to increase Bdnf production, and that's brain-driven nootropic factor or something like that. Brain-derived nootropic factor, sorry. And what Bdnf is a stimulatory protein that increases new brain cell production, while also improving the performance of existing brain cells. So research has been linked that individuals with higher levels of Bdnf have less depression, find it easier to focus, and have greater mental endurance than people who have low Bdnf. The problem is that aging and stress decrease Bdnf activity, particularly in individuals who don't actively try to learn new skills or pursue new hobbies, and creatine boosts your Bdnf, which therefore should make you less depressed and also protect your brain cells and have them work. Now, if that wasn't enough, creatine, ATP, let's talk about ATP. So creatine steps in, right? So creatine helps well, before I talk about ATP, I have to talk about ADP. So ADP is compound in your body, right? And I'm not a scientist, so we haven't said that too. So we have to make sure that after this,
oh yes,
say that. All right, but let me finish this first. So ATP is what your body uses for energy. ADP, which will make sense in a second, but because my notes are out of order here, I'm just trying to make sense of this. Okay, so when ATP, the energy of your body, brain and body, is used as an energy source in your neurons, it loses a phosphate molecule. That turns ATP into ADP. ATP is the primary energy molecule used in your cells as energy. ATP is your body's natural fuel source. ATP is broken down to produce biochemical energy throughout your body, including your brain cells, right? When ATP is used, it's left as output as ADP. It's missing that phosphate molecule. Creatine steps in and offers ADP that phosphate molecule, which turns it back into ATP so that it can be used again to fuel your cells and, most importantly, to fuel your brain cells. Creatine essentially recharges the fuel cells in your neurons. And that's why creatine is incredibly important. You can even say essential for mental energy, for your neurotransmitters, and as a neuroprotectant and as an antioxidant, right? That also helps with depression, that also helps with learning, that also helps against Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. It is a pretty amazing thing. And to make it even better, right, there is no special form of creatine that you need to take. No matter how good the marketing hype is, basic, regular, cheap creatine will do the trick. If you eat a lot of meat, you probably already have good creatine levels, and you won't need more. But if you're a vegetarian, in every study that I've read about where vegetarians were given creatine, their mental performance, their test scores, etc., all went up, all of them. Which is why I'm always bothering Kim about our daughter Ileana, who is a vegetarian, to have creatine. But they look at me like I'm a crazy person. So one day they will take creatine and they will realize that it made a difference, and then they will tell me so, which is what usually happens. Let's talk about what this is. Like, we're not doctors, we're not researchers, we're not scientists. Like, I'm sharing with you guys what I use, what works for me. And everyone, before you do any of these things, you should check with your doctor. I check with my doctor on everything I take. And I can also tell you that my body responds uniquely to many of these things as far as the dosages I have to take. However, like, everyone is different. And so, you know, it's like when someone comes over my house and they want to try things, what I tend to give people is bromantane, because I don't know how they're going to react to these different things. And I don't want to necessarily be responsible. And I don't want to be responsible for you either, which means that you need to check with a doctor, do your own research. But for many of you, like, you might not have ever known that creatine is actually a great nootropic. And if you never knew that, I want to make sure you know that. Right now, what you do with that information is entirely up to you. I'm not suggesting that you take it. I'm suggesting that you look into it and decide for yourself whether you want to. Is there any other anything I didn't say that I should say?
That about covers it. Yep, we're not doctors, we're not scientists. This information is for educational purposes, informational purposes only. So anything we share, do your own research on it and make your own decisions. Be smart about what you test out and how you test it to see if it works for you. You know, it's funny what you said about not realizing it was a nootropic, because I shared with Rich before we went live here. I was going to the gym every day, taking my pre-workout supplements, and I realized days I went to the gym, I was more focused, I was getting more done, I felt better. And I thought it was just the workout until I switched my pre-workout and switched the protein shakes that I was drinking. And I realized there were nootropics in my pre-workouts, and I was taking creatine and some of these things. And it was actually having a huge effect on my mental focus levels on those days. So yeah, definitely a great nootropic.
I find that's the same thing. A lot of the ingredients that are in pre-workout drinks are actually good nootropics as well, especially for focus, especially if you're someone who likes to kind of get amped up. The next one is this next one. Real quick. You got something? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, we got a question that I wanted to answer real quick. Are the experts who discuss this kind of stuff? Yes. And if you join us in the Apex Human Facebook group, you will be the first to know when the Apex Human channel launches. We've already got some really expert people coming on to share and create content for the channel. There will be names that you recognize in the nootropic space, and if you don't yet, you'll be glad to meet them, connect with them. So make sure you join us in the Facebook group so we can let you know when that goes live.
Yeah, and I would say that we're at least a month away from it going live, if not longer. But just like Steal Our Winners, we were the least expensive the day that we launched. And there are people who bought programs for like $100, right? Or $200 that now, like, we took the cost of that product went up to $2,000 and we were selling it for $2,000. And we've since taken it off the market. Like, we don't sell that anymore. So if you're interested in this stuff at all, make sure to get on the list or join the Facebook group or whatever, because you'll definitely want to know about it at the early stages when it's the least expensive, when we're trying to get to critical mass.
We've got some pretty cool things lined up for y'all.
Some really cool stuff that'll blow you guys away. The next one, I kind of decided like there are certain ones where you'll have to, let's see, I'm going to try and plug this in because I'm just losing my phone.
Oh no.
Because it's power. There we go.
I'll just say hi to a few people. Hey, Go, thanks for joining us. Good to see you here. Let's see. Renan from Brazil. Thanks for tuning in on YouTube.
Hey, Renan.
Okay. Go ahead.
Cool. All right, so let me go to the next
fiddling.
one, and then you'll say hello to some more people in between. So the next one we're going to talk about, you're going to have to do research on this, so I'm not going to tell you about its background and all of that kind of stuff. What I will say is that it was developed in Russia a long time ago, and it's called Nopept, Nopept. You can get it where most nootropics are sold. I got my last batch at Nootropic Source, but I've also bought it at Nootropics Depot, both.com. At Nootropic Source, I buy the nasal spray of Nopept. And the reason I buy the nasal spray is, one, it's extremely fast acting. So you might be wondering, why am I talking about it in long-term strategies? Because this nootropic has also some unique characteristics. It's one of the fastest acting, and it will improve your memory. It will improve your ability to pay attention, your ability to focus, and your ability to concentrate in the short run, like immediately. But it also promotes neuroplasticity and the growth of new brain tissue over time. So this is something that is often, they prescribe this for, like in Russia, for ADHD, and it's taken daily. And I take about 10 milligrams, so not a big dose. This is 1.5 milligrams per spray. So 6 sprays, 9 milligrams, right? Like 3 in each nostril. And I immediately feel it. But then there are long-term benefits. It increases wakefulness. It reduces oxidative stress. So it's an antioxidant. It promotes brain health. It also reduces anxiety and also promotes excitability. It's not as strong as bromotain. Maybe it is if at the same kind of dose as bromotain, but generally this is taken in a much smaller dose, right? It's generally like 1/5 or 1/10 of what you might take in bromotain. And so this is Nopept. Pretty much every nootropics place that sells nootropics sells this. Anyone else to say hi to, or should we move to the next one?
Absolutely. Let's see here. So Mark commented here, I do sales and nootropics is my go-to for staying focused, taking clear notes, and thinking on my feet. Great comment.
Cool.
And Jason asked, where do you find the Facebook group? It's just Apex Human on Facebook, or wherever you're watching this, there should be a comment from me with the link, hopefully, but you can just find us Apex Human.
Yeah, Apex Human. All right, so let's talk about the next one. The next one is, these are all ingestibles, obviously. There are other strategies too that we'll get to. So the next one is lion's mane, the mushroom. And it has a long tradition of being used in brain health. Some cultures recognize it as a memory aid, some as a concentration enhancer, and others for overall mental function. But it's been around for thousands of years, and it's been used for thousands of years. And it also is very good at bolstering nerve growth and repair in the brain for clarity and focus. Now, it has a tremendous amount of benefits for brain health, for gut health, for nerve regeneration. And also, I wonder if, as I was doing the research to put together for today, I've often wondered, I've read in countless places, right, that, and I've personally experienced it, where like drinking just totally destroys your sleep and really messes it up. Smoking pot before bed will make you more sleepy and makes it easier to fall asleep. It actually reduces the latency period to sleep. But for a lot of people, or most people, or all people, it decreases your REM and increases your deep sleep. I struggle to get enough deep sleep. I have a ridiculous amount of REM every night, generally like 3 hours of REM or more. And I don't sleep that much. Like, so I was thinking that one reason why, and I smoke to go to bed a lot. So you would think I'd have less REM, not more. I think part of the reason I have so much REM is because of lion's mane. I take lion's mane at night before I go to bed. So let's talk about lion's mane.
Quick question for you, Rich, because I know people are going to ask, what do you use to track your sleep, and how are you seeing deep sleep versus REM versus light sleep?
I use the Oura Ring. I sleep with my Oura Ring on. I also sleep with an Apple Watch on. And at some point I might get a Whoop too and sleep with that on too. I like to get as many data points as I can. I think, I look at the sleep, the sleep tab in the Oura, but I also spend a lot of time looking at readiness, because like sometimes the sleep thing might be off, but my readiness looks good. And so I'm going to default to, I'm not going to be that worried about my sleep that day if my readiness level is high, like my HRV is trending up, like everything else looks good. It just, because the sleep is probably the least accurate overall of, on any tracker. And so I don't live and die by it, but it's what I'm sharing has been consistent, right? So let's kind of talk about why and how it's been linked to brain health, and then some of the other benefits that you get. Okay, it has certain elements in it and that cross the blood-brain barrier, and that's really important, right? Because as it crosses the brain-blood barrier or blood-brain barrier, what these compounds can do is help regenerate activity within the brain, and so that's pretty powerful. Because it also comes down to nerve growth factor, right? NGF is what it's called. And nerve growth factor functions exactly as the name would suggest. It regulates nerve cell growth and reproduction, maintains cellular health, and prevents cell death. Nerve growth factor is part of a family of molecules known as nootropic factors, which support both mature and developing neurons. Nootropic factors make it possible for the brain to heal and repair itself after injury and maintain what's known as plasticity, the ability to learn and change throughout life. NGF itself isn't capable of crossing the blood-brain barrier. The molecule is just simply too big. That isn't a problem in healthy individuals whose brains make enough NGF. Your brain makes it, right? But when the brain begins to age, or when it's been exposed to excessive stress or trauma or any of those things, the levels of NGF and neuroplasticity decline. And that's where these things from lion's mane come in. Extracts from the mushroom have the potential to enhance the growth factor of neurites. That these projections grow out of the nerve cells and become either axons or dendrites, the part of the, that's, the things on both sides of the ends, the parts of the neuron that allow the cell to communicate with each other. But more neurite growth or regeneration means better communication inside the brain, and that means better overall function. Nootropics, sometimes called smart drugs, are natural or synthetic substances with beneficial effects on the brain. Lion's mane mushrooms fall into that natural category, making it particularly popular among biohackers for an extra mental edge. Lion's mane's stimulating effect comes without the buzz or crash of some other nootropics, most notably caffeine. It also doesn't share the potential of negative side effects of some prescription nootropics. Instead, the mushroom is touted for its ability to safely enhance cognition, improve memory, and support learning. Focus and productivity. Along with the benefits related to improving mood and reducing anxiety, and we'll get to those two in a second, it also, people report better focus and productivity while supplementing with lion's mane. The active compound appears to address the root cause of brain fog, which is a common complaint among those struggling with their attention. For this reason, lion's mane coffee has been gaining popularity as a way to enjoy extra morning boost. Yes. I've seen a few people drinking that. So it also helps with depression. Me. Is it? Okay, so it also helps with depression and anxiety, right? So it helps your memory, it helps depression, helps anxiety, it helps your body rebuild your nerve growth factor. And the daily benefit of using it does decrease depression and also anxiety. And I have this belief. I don't know that I shared it on the last live stream, but I definitely shared it with Michelle when we were planning these, that I think that for people who have a consistent ability or difficulty focusing, I believe that there is either a element of anxiety or an element of depression that is underneath that. And so for that reason, I especially like nootropics that can not only help you focus, but also address some of those underlying issues like anxiety or depression, right? It also improves your heart, right? It's good for heart health. It also reduces inflammation, which is really important for a host of reasons. It's been shown to increase your ability to respond to insulin, which means it lowers your insulin. I'm drawing a blank. What do we call it? Resistance, insulin resistance.
Insulin resistance, yeah.
Which is at the core of diabetes. It also increases your immune system. So, Kim is always wondering, why is it that like my blood tests come in so well, or how am I able to sleep so well, even though I take a lot of stimulants? One of the reasons is lion's mane. And it is, the long term of using it certainly works well. All right, so the next one. And lion's mane also you can get anywhere. You can buy some good ones on Amazon, but you could also buy them at Nootropics Source, Nootropics Depot, and any of those other places.
Yeah,
all right,
I love the lion's mane coffee from Four Sigmatic. They've got fantastic nootropic coffees with different mushrooms, including lion's mane in them.
I've heard of that. I've never tried it. Maybe remind me at some point. I'd like to try it. I should buy some. How does it impact you? Do you notice it, or is it just?
Yeah, I do. I definitely notice the difference. Yeah,
right.
And I think it's actually helped a lot with insulin resistance for me because I've been borderline diabetic since my late 20s, and so it's something I try to stay fairly aware of. And I feel better when I am consistently drinking lion's mane coffee and a few other things that also help with insulin resistance.
Got it. Yeah. I've been taking it at night for about about 2 or 3 years, or about 3 years. Okay, the next one, Phosphatidylserine, Phosphatidylserine, which I could be even pronouncing it wrong, but I don't think I am. Most people probably haven't heard of this one. It is a fat-soluble compound that is naturally found in the brain. It's required, your brain needs it for cognitive function and healthy nerve cells. It's necessary for neuron cell membranes to be able to release the neurotransmitters. That's what it allows the neuron cells to do, right? Release dopamine, release serotonin, release epinephrine, those kinds of things. Let's see. Okay, don't need to know about that. Recent research has shown that phosphatidylserine has shown it possesses neuroprotective, neuropotentiating, and anti-neurodegenerative properties, and that the supplementation of exogenous, meaning outside the body, like getting more, Phosphatidylserine reliably improves memory, mood, learning, cognition, focus, processing speed, and overall cognitive function. One study looked specifically at its effects on children with ADHD and found that it had significantly improved inattention, impulsivity, and short-term memory. So I know there are quite a few entrepreneurs that struggle with ADD. I know that, for those that don't know, I have ADD. So I especially like when I find solutions that I'm looking for one thing, like better focus, but it also helps me in other areas that I struggle with. And certainly phosphatidylserine is one of those things, and it's easily found as well. It's vital for brain health. It's highly concentrated in your cell membranes. helps the release, storage, and activity of all neurotransmitters, which boost cognition, focus, memory, and recall. I've already said that. And let me just see. All right. So I'm looking at a thing I pasted in from PubMed, which is one of the best places to look that and examine, like to get information about stuff and just make sure that you're taking the right things, or I'm talking about the right things. 300 to 800 milligrams a day is absorbed efficiently in humans, crosses the blood-brain barrier, safely slows, halts, or reverses biochemical alterations and structural deteriorations in nerve cells. It supports human cognitive function, including the formation of short-term memory, the consolidation of long-term memory, the ability to create new memories, the ability to retrieve memories, the ability to learn and recall information, the ability to focus, attention and concentrate, the ability to reason and solve problems, language skills, the ability to communicate. It also supports locomotor function, especially rapid reactions and reflexes. So not a bad...
I'm going to try this one.
Things very easily found. And you'll have the notes on how to spell it and all that. The next one is also used for ADHD and is also... well, I'll give you more of a rundown on this one. It was an experimental drug in Russia. Well, the name of it, let me tell you that first. It's called Semax, or Semax, S-E-M-A-X. And it was an experimental drug for circulatory disorders in Russia. It was also initially used in Russia to treat stroke victims and victims of brain damage. It works just like it works like a hormone, which counteracts stress brought by external factors from the environment. It also primes the brain for action that can reduce behaviors like procrastination and avoidance. Cmax can also induce a controlled state of mental stress, which optimizes brain function. It's like turning it up a little bit. The results have clearly shown that Cmax has nootropic and analgesic actions, pain relieving actions. The intranasal Cmax was seen as more effective when it comes to improving learning. So this is the intranasal Cmax. You can also get this at nootropic source. So the body, your body, my body, all of our bodies respond negatively to stress, significant stress, right, by increasing certain liver enzyme productions. Cmax prevents that. So it prevents the enzyme production caused by stress. And stress is not only like horrible stress like around you, but not getting enough sleep is stress on the body. Being sick is a stress on the body. So it helps with all those things. It's recommended for ADHD and learning, right? Studies show with ADHD that it can improve memory and increase the neurotransmitters that are lower in patients with ADHD. In Russia, this is a common alternative for drug therapy for children with ADHD. Since ADHD is possibly a neurodevelopmental condition, this could disturb levels of dopamine, with which Cmax addresses, right? Cmax increases your dopamine. Neurotransmitters like, you're not going to know this one, so let me skip over that. Can influence perception, helps with the formulation of memories, good in the regulation, helps with the regulation of mood, helps deal with any kind of stress, as well as improve memory and cognition. Let's just see, improves attention. That's why I put it in as a focus thing. Most frequently reported benefits are motivation and mood. Cmax is well known to rapidly induce Bdnf, brain-driven nootropic factor. More serotonin can explain the behavioral improvements people report of a more stress-resistant mood and higher energy levels, making it effective for conditions like chronic fatigue. The arrow signifies the point of administration. I'm looking at a graph. If directed by it's directed to be used daily for clinical study. The lower concentration, 0.1 Cmax from Russia, is advised to be used for healthy cognition enhancement, such as improving learning and memory, mood, and brain function in general, and is also recommended to be used daily. So a very low amount, right? Like I do like this whole bottle has 200 micrograms in it, which is very little compared to like the NoPep, which has 1.5 milligrams in per serving. So this has what, you know, I'm trying to look, this whole bottle has less than one serving of this, right? Just to kind of give you a perspective. Yeah, 200 milligrams per spray. So I'm doing about 600 micrograms to give people just an understanding. Your dosage will be somewhere between 200 and 600 micrograms. So that is CMAX. Any questions? Or are we good?
I think we are good.
Cool. All right, let's keep it going then. Okay, Acetyl-L-Carnitine. And Acetyl-L-Carnitine is another really interesting one because it helps with weight loss, but it also is really good for the brain in a lot of ways. So let's, it helps improve, it's also known as Alcar, like in nootropic circles, but it's Acetyl-L-Carnitine. And many studies have shown specific improvements in attention and reductions in hyperactivity when children with ADHD use it. A lot of studies have shown that Alcar has the ability to improve memory, learning, mental clarity, and processing speed, which is interesting because, you know, when people talk about intelligence, I like to think like processing speed is the thing that I am most, I'm most impressed by. And what I mean by that is that, you know, someone can learn things that another person doesn't know. Just because one person knows one thing and this person doesn't mean that the person that knows the thing is necessarily smarter, although they have more information. What I like when I think of someone who's really smart, it's really comes down to their ability to process information. Like, how long does it take them to learn something? How long do they need something explained to them before they get it? And so when we're talking about things that increase processing speed, it improves everything that you do, like as it relates to your mental performance. And that's why, like, I'm always most impressed with processing speed. All right, so here are some of the pros of using Acetyl-L-Carnitine. It combats depression. It helps with Alzheimer's disease. It may reverse brain and nerve damage. It improves fertility and sexual function. It reduces fatigue. It maximizes your ATP production, and then you're taking that other one that will recycle it. It boosts your mitochondrial health, and your mitochondria are the energy pumps of the whole body. It increases your acetylcholine, which we talked about why Max gets headaches from alpha brain. It scavengers free radicals, so it acts as an antioxidant, and it prevents brain aging caused by lactate buildup in the brain. So lactate also builds up in the brain, and this helps clear it away, which is one of the reasons why it's good for Alzheimer's and combats depression. It will help rev up your energy levels. Clinical research confirms the benefits of the brain, of Acetyl-L-Carnitine for the brain, especially in older people. It boosts your acetylcholine, which has a pronounced effect on your health, mental health, and cognition. It also shields the brain against oxidative stress. It supplies the nerves with energy, enables the production of neurotransmitters crucial for health that include acetylcholine, GABA, and glutamate. It strengthens the myelin, you know, the myelin sheaths around your nerve cells, your brain cells, around the brain cells, and stimulates their growth, helping to regrow your brain. According to a meta-analysis of 11 clinical trials with 791 patients, Alcar is superior to placebo in reducing depression symptoms. It seems to have an effect comparable to standard antidepressants while causing fewer side effects. In 2 studies with 576 older people, Acetyl-L-Carnitine enhanced cognition, improved mood and behavior, and reduced fatigue. In 56 older patients, it partially reversed dementia due to the reduced blood flow in the brain. It helps. Yeah. Alcar does everything that L-Carnitine does, but can also cross the blood-brain barrier where L-Carnitine can't. So, you know, there you go. How does Acetyl-L-Carnitine work in the brain? It boosts brain health and function in several ways, but 2 particular ways stand out. It boosts acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter tied to memory and overall brain function, and it's a precursor to acetylcholine in the presence of coenzyme A. L-Car donates a methyl group to make coenzyme A acetylcholine. And let's see what else I have about acetyl-L-Carnitine. Alzheimer's disease brains show a 25 to 40% reduction in carnitine acetyltransferase, a brain enzyme that works with L-carnitine. Acetyl-L-Carnitine restores. The brain enzyme decline led researchers to link low L-Car with low acetylcholine and Alzheimer's onset. They went on to suggest L-Car is a viable therapy for both brain regeneration. L-Car promotes brain energy by fueling your brain cells' mitochondria, and last but not least, it helps shuttle and transport fatty acids through the cell membranes in your brain. So that allows it to be burnt for energy, and then it also flushes it out and keeps it clean. So a pretty powerful supplement, and it is something that we used to use in my hypnosis centers 20 years ago when we dealt with people with weight loss, because it gave them more energy in a healthy way, right? Like some of these people we couldn't necessarily give caffeine to or things like that, but we could give them acetylcarnitine because it is kind of what your body is using for energy.
Well, I gotta try that one. I haven't tried that yet, and I know that got pretty technical, scientific. But what I love is how many studies there have been done on this one and on a lot of other nootropics, that the information is out there if you just do the research for it, because they have been tested, they have been put through clinical trials, and you can find that data.
And acetyl-L-Carnitine you can find anywhere. You can find it anywhere. You can find it in your local Walgreens, probably, to Amazon, to better sources like the ones we've already mentioned. All right, let's press on. We're going to talk about L-Tyrosine, and I just happened to take some L-Tyrosine before this live stream, because as I was reviewing the research on it, I'm like, I want to try a higher dose. I take 1 gram of it, 1,000 milligrams in the morning, but I took 2 grams of it about an hour ago. So let's talk about L-Tyrosine.
Hey, Ava says hi.
Oh, that is, depending on which daughter you ask, that is my favorite daughter. Hey, baby. All right, so L-Tyrosine. It helps the body build proteins in your body and produce enzymes, thyroid hormones, and the skin pigment melanin. It also helps the body produce neurotransmitters that help nerve cells communicate. Tyrosine is particularly important in the production of epinephrine, norepinephrine, and dopamine. Okay. One powerful blah, blah, blah. Okay. It helps increase happiness, improves mood, and manages stress. Now, there's a more bioavailable form called N-acetyl-L-Tyrosine. I've never taken it. So I put it down, but like NALT, N-A-L-T is like short for N-acetyl-L-Tyrosine. I'm going to try it one of these days, but haven't yet. L-tyrosine is an amino acid. When supplemented, improves mood and memory, enhances cognitive abilities, increases focus, and reduces the adverse effects of stress. Research suggests that supplementing L-tyrosine can enhance. Okay, I just read that. Decades of studies show that the supplement L-tyrosine can significantly boost cognition in stressful conditions, effectively offsetting defects in working memory and information processing created by environmental stressors such as extreme weather or intense cognitive demand. By creating a buffer of raw material from which the brains can produce neurotransmitters, L-tyrosine supplementation may prevent the depletion associated with stress. Right? L-tyrosine has been shown to improve cognitive performance by modulating the body's physical response to stress. In 1999, a military study of cadets on combat training course subjects took L-tyrosine, and they had significantly lower blood pressure than those receiving the placebo and performed better on memory and tracking tasks.
That's cool.
Yep, it lowers blood pressure. Intense physical or mental stress increases the release of adrenaline, norepinephrine, and dopamine, and levels can quickly become depleted. When this happens, the brain initiates the process of creating more by releasing an enzyme that converts L-tyrosine first into this other precursor, which then turns into L-dopa, and then from L-dopa into dopamine. Part of which is oxidized and converted into norepinephrine and then adrenaline, right? So this is the raw ingredient your brain uses to make these incredibly important neurotransmitters like dopamine and norepinephrine. Okay, let's see. To increase mental performance or mitigate the effect of stress, a single dose of 500 milligrams to 2,000 milligrams of L-Tyrosine has been shown to be safe and effective. You will also find L-Tyrosine in many pre-workout drinks. And part of the reason for that is that when you're working out, you're putting your body under a tremendous amount of stress. And this will increase the endurance. This will allow you to go longer, harder, you know, with more weight or whatever it is that you're trying to do. Last one here for L-Tyrosine. Working or studying long hours, struggling with anxiety, and even intense exercises are all stressors that can have a negative effect on cognition. And L-Tyrosine supplementation helps alleviate that. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Awesome. All right. So the next
So I know
one,
you've got a couple more what to take, but
more.
real quick, a question. You might want to circle back to
Yeah,
this
sure.
one later. But Mark Sams asks, what do you think will help with sales?
What do I think will help with sales? Like, oh, well, like how to sell better. Yeah. A couple things that I mentioned last week. I mentioned a nootropic that I like when I combine it with other ones, subglutamine. And what I find with subglutamine, which some other people have, I wouldn't say that everyone who's tried it has told me this, but I'd say about half have agreed, that it increases verbal fluency, which is great for copywriters. And I've done a bunch of biohacking presentations to copywriters for Agora and stuff like that. But it's also great for live streaming, doing a webinar, doing anything where you have to think on your feet and speak. And so I find combining subglutamine with any of the quick acting ones, as well as maybe some of these long-term ones, would be beneficial because, you know, I'm not like a sales expert by any stretch of the imagination. That's why I became a marketer and not a salesperson. But having your brain work faster and being more verbally fluent would certainly be good. And then I would imagine I also think, though, like a bromotain would be good too, because you're sped up, but you're not, like an Adderall or a Provigil is going to make you a little bit more aggressive. And I don't know necessarily you want to be aggressive like in a sales environment. So you want it's like golf, right? You want the increased focus without the jitters or the like attack the ball kind of thought process. It's the same, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. Bromotain is the one I was thinking of. I take that before I've got calls that I know I need to both be on my game, but also be less anxious for, which I get anxious when I have sales calls. So I find that one really helpful. And Cortex as well. I've been taking that for about 3 weeks, I think now. And I found that one helpful before.
That makes sense. It has alpha GPC in it. Yeah, it's got a few things in it that would help. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one is, so we're not going to spend a lot of time on it at all, but it's something that you've probably heard before, and we're talking about omega-3s, fish oil. And I'm someone who's taken, so I read a book, had to be over a decade ago. And I think that there's a low-grade depression that kind of runs in my genes. Like my dad, I think, had it. And I think other members of my family have it without airing their dirty laundry. I think I have it, which is why I'm talking about it. And so I read this book called The Depression Cure years and years and years ago. And part of the depression cure was, I think, having like 6 grams of fish oil a day. And then in a lot of ADD books and literature, they recommend more fish oil too, that it helps the ADD brain. It really provides a really good base for any kind of nootropic. And it's, your brain is made up of a lot of it is made up of fat, fatty acids, particularly omega-3s. polysaturated unfatty acid. So supplementing that is something that over the last 20 years, I've heard it so many times. And I think it's also one of the reasons why when I have my blood tested, I'm often told by doctors, like, they're blown away at my good to bad ratio of cholesterol, and that like they've never seen a guy's, like, my ratio is really good, and it's really good at the top for women, which are generally much higher than men. Like my doctor's like, you're the only man that I've seen like have this kind of ratio. Part of it I think has to do with how much fish oil I have. And generally I take krill oil as opposed to fish oil. And I take it raw. And I take some in pill form, but I take the majority of it just pouring it and having it. And actually, what I like to do with that, just to give people an idea, I did a live stream a long time ago when I was doing them weekly, where I talked about how, when you read a vitamin bottle, they will say take with meals or take on an empty stomach.
Yeah.
What they're talking about there is that some vitamins are water soluble, some are fat soluble. If you take water soluble vitamins with fat, you degrade their ability to be absorbed. If you take fat soluble with water and nothing in your body, you're degrading the ability for that to be absorbed. So ideally, you really want to take your water soluble vitamins in water on an empty stomach. And you really want to take your fat soluble with some fat in your stomach. So what I do is I will often take all of my water soluble supplements before I go for a walk with Kim in the morning. And it's an empty stomach. I drink it with water. I haven't eaten yet. But then after we get back from the walk, so it's like an hour later, I might not be eating till many hours later. And, one thing I've learned with my ADD is that when I have the thought, I need to do the action, because if I tell myself I'll do it later, 99% of the time it's 9 o'clock at night and I'm looking at these supplements, and I know some of them are uplifting, and I'm like, I can't take these at 9 o'clock. I won't be able to sleep tonight. So what I do instead is that's when I take my morning dose of krill oil. I'll take like 3 teaspoons of it, it's like 3 grams. And now I have fat in my stomach, and now I'll take all my fat soluble vitamins. And so that's the way I do it. I actually use the krill oil as a way to get fat in my stomach for all the supplements I know are better dissolved in fat. Now, if you don't know which is which, it's really easy. Like if you have anything that has a Siri or Alexa on it, it's probably the fastest way. Like you pull out your vitamins, and then I don't want to say either right now because I have both in this office and they're both going to start talking to me. But I would say, hey, G, or hey, S, is lion's mane water or fat soluble? And then it would say, according to, blah, 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 and then I would just put that in that pile and put the others in the other pile. And that's how I would do it, as opposed to having to look it up and write it all down. But then take pictures or write it all down. And so that's how I take. So like, I like that too, because I can't forget to take my krill oil, because it's essential for me to take my other stuff. So it becomes part of this overall habit that works for me. And I feel good about it, because like for years, I didn't know that there was a difference between vitamins and when you're supposed to take them. And I noticed the difference as soon as I made that shift. Cool. All right. We got really one more, because the last one is one I spoke about last week, but I just want to mention that it has long-term benefits as well. The next one, though, is I think this one. Well, I'll find out in a second. Yeah, this was one I was thinking about for my girlfriend Kim. Actually, it's something that I've been taking for a long time. Bacopa Manieri.
And Kim says hi. She is watching.
Cool. She told me she was going to watch. So Bacopa might be something good for her. It's an adaptogen. So it's like, ashwagandha or rhodesia, riola, or any of those, like as far as being an adaptogen. But what an adaptogen means is that it attenuates the effects of it to mental and physical stress on the body. It helps deal with that. In terms of boosting memory, its primary mechanism appears to be the communication between neurons. It modulates acetylcholine as well. And we've already talked about acetylcholine a couple times, and we talked a lot about it in the previous live stream. But Bacopa has been shown to potentially enhance memory and promote neuronal dendrite growth, but only after 4 weeks of supplementation. In traditional Ayurvedic medicine, for thousands of years for different ailments, including calming down anxiety, improving memory and focus, and enhancing learning abilities. Bacopa's positive effects on the brain have made it a popular nootropic, commonly used to improve overall cognition, but also to gently reduce anxiety and stress by lowering cortisol, the stress hormone. And then having too high of a cortisol will interfere with your sleep and causes a cascade of problems. The Bacopa plant contains many phytochemicals. They've found one of them is largely responsible for most of its cognitive benefit, but there are other ones that are probably doing other beneficial things that we're not sure of. The constituent of Bacopa can promote the growth, spread, and survival of different types of cell in the part of the brain that is associated with memory and learning. Definitely something valuable and something I've been taking for a long time. And you'll have to text me, and I will text you back afterwards, Michelle, like what my dosage is, because I don't remember it off the top of my head.
Gotcha.
Paracetam is one that we talked about last week because it's one of the racetams. But and I mentioned that aniracetam is really good for depression and overall mood as well, and that I take that daily. Paracetam is another one that you could take daily, and primarily because aniracetam and paracetam were the two first ones. That's not why you can take them daily, but they're a lot less strong than phenylparacetam and some of those other ones. All right, cool. So that covers all the ingestibles, but obviously there's a lot of things you can do long-term to improve your ability to concentrate and your ability to focus. And so the next, I would put all three of these like in one bucket. One is meditation. Another one is breathing exercises. And the last one I'd say is journal writing. And let me explain why I'm putting those three in one. With meditation, you're practicing not being distracted or noticing your distractions and noticing when you get distracted, both visually, sound, etc., depending on the type of meditation you do. The app that I like the best for meditation personally is Sam Harris's Waking Up app. And the reason I like it so much is I think the meditations are really good, but more than that, Sam is a wickedly smart human being. And he also, like, while he has this track of daily meditation, he also has these tracks for what to listen to explain about meditation so that you really understand it. And I think his explanations are the best. Like, and even in the 30-day ramp up of like 10 minutes a day, like he asks you to meditate with your eyes open where there are sounds. And he asks you like, and there's a reason for that, right? Most people think that they have to like meditate in quiet, but that's not, you're noticing where consciousness goes. And so it's actually useful when learning to see how you get distracted and things like that. So anyway, I like Sam Harris's Waking Up app a lot, and I think it's available on all of the different cell phone operating systems. I also like the Muse. I'm on and off with that though. For those that don't know, I have two of them. I have one up here and one downstairs in the house. It measures your brain waves, and it tells you while you're meditating, like it gamifies it. It makes it a scoring type of game, and like you can have the sound of the ocean in the background, and then if it's peaceful, it means you're in a meditative state. If it starts getting windier and windier, it means your brain is getting more active. If there are birdies chirping, it means that you've just switched from an active brain to a calm mind. So you're always trying to get birdies. And it's just a way to kind of, for people who have tried meditating and they're like, I don't even know if it's working. I don't know if I'm doing this right. I don't even know what I'm doing. Like those kinds of things that will interfere with your ability to meditate, saying that to yourself constantly. And so this is an easy way to get all those questions answered. It will tell you like when you're doing a good job and when you could be doing better. So that's meditation. But, you know, it's probably, you can't help but become more focused and have a higher ability to pay attention if you meditate. And there are so many other benefits to meditation as well, cognitively, emotionally, physical health, where blood pressure goes down. There are so many benefits to meditation. And in this day and age where we tend to be go, 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 so like every day, all day, having some time to really reflect inside and really understand yourself at a deeper level is really important and really beneficial. So it's something, you know, I strongly recommend. And, you know, to me, it doesn't make sense to take a lot of like the things that we talked about and not do something as basic as meditation. So that is something to just, at least that's my perspective on it. Now, another track at that, a lot of those benefits are breathing exercises. Now, I'm not an expert by any stretch on breathing exercises, but I wanted to share one type of breathing exercise that I've been doing recently that so far I've noticed some pretty cool stuff with it. It's called resonance frequency breathing. There is an app on... There's one app that I found. There's a couple apps that are coming out at some point, but there's one app that actually is out where you can do this resonance frequency breathing, and it's called Hrv Biofeedback. And here's the whole premise, right? My doctor actually told me about resonance frequency breathing because my blood pressure is higher than I want it to be. My doctor tells me I have nothing to worry about because, like, we've done the scans of my heart, we've done the scans of my blood vessels, and I have no plaque in any of my vessels, and we've done everything, right? But like, I would still like it to be lower. And so I've been focusing on that and been doing a bunch of things for it. We'll get to that when, in the live stream where we talk about like physical body and stuff. So I wanted to lower my blood pressure, and he told me to check out resonance frequency breathing. I started reading about it. And I also was complaining to my doctor that my HRV is lower than I'd like, which would make a lot of sense if you're taking lots of like stimulants. Stimulants is going to overstimulate the sympathetic nervous system at the expense of the parasympathetic. And HRV is the balance between the parasympathetic and sympathetic. And therefore, if your HRV is low, the balance between the two are not good. And that would make sense if for someone who either spends a lot of time relaxed or a lot of time like in a stimulated state. And I spend a lot of time in a stimulated state. So, and there's a lot of reasons why you want your HRV higher, because it's correlated with mortality and a bunch of other things. So the gist behind resonance frequency breathing is that everyone has their own ideal breathing rate. And it's different, right? It can range anywhere from 7 seconds for a full breath in and out, so 3.5 seconds in to 3.5 seconds out, to like 14 seconds total, 7 seconds in, 7 seconds out. When you breathe at your ideal breathing rate, what happens is that a lot of resonance happens in the body. You're breathing at the same rate that your heart is beating. You're breathing at the same rate that your vagus nerve is sending out impulses. And all of these different things all go down to the same beat, the same pattern, right? And it makes it stronger. So your HRV shoots up, right? Your heart rate lowers, and all of these beneficial things. And so I've been doing a bunch of that, and I find that after I've done a session like that, and my HRV is a lot higher, what that's telling me at that moment is that I'm highly focused, but I'm very relaxed. And that's where you want to be that is the flow state, right? You cannot be tense and be in flow. You could be in a hyper focus mode in tense, and there are like parallels between the two, and we'll cover that in a different episode. So that's breathing though. And then the last is journal writing. And journal writing also is about getting stuff out of your head, right? So you're not ruminating on things. And I find it very beneficial to write in my journal right before I plan on doing a long focus session, to try and get anything that's in my head out of my head and also just kind of be able to have like an empty mind, right? Like when I walk into whatever it is I need to focus on. And it's a lot easier if I've written down everything I've been thinking about, anything that's bothering me, any conversations I got to make sure to have, like all these kinds of things. So, and I just feel like meditation, breathing, and journaling all kind of belong in the same group. So that is another thing. I think, oh, wow, we've already gone over. So I think like we'll answer a question.
And Ryan says hi.
Hey, Ryan, very cool. What I did want to talk about are some other things that I'll quickly cover. And then at some point we'll go deeper in this.
We may need a part 3 on this one.
Yeah. One thing I want to talk about is gamification. I've used different like gaming ways of scoring different activities. Like I get 10 points when I focus on something that like a team member needs or I promised a client. I get 1 point for checking email because like I don't really need to be checking email. And so like, and then trying to beat my score each day is a way of keeping me focused long term. I think also having a focus routine, like your body can learn over time that like if this signal at this place happens, you always go into a major focus mode, like it will become easier over time. If you always listen to the same music, if you're always staying at the same place, if you're always in the same location or whatever, right? So all of those things can kind of be helpful and you can build a stimulus response pattern with anything. And so you can, if you do things, any things that you do consistently before you focus or while you focus can become then triggers to get into focus. So I also think having a routine as far as waking up and sleep is incredibly important because if you're sleep deprived, focusing and being at your best is close to being close to impossible. And you might be able to cover that up for one day with some powerful like nootropic, like we talked about last week. But the second day,
don't do it long term.
The second day, you're going to be crap.
Yep.
And so
that's
that
burn out your adrenals.
Yeah, that's how you burn out your adrenals. Of course, exercise. There's like, John Brady, who I'm sure I'll do a Apex Human with because he was my doctor for a period of time. He wrote the book Spark. He also wrote Driven to Distraction, Delivered from Distraction, all those books. But he wrote a book, Spark, about how, like, really, like, there is nothing more powerful than exercise to keep the brain healthy, to increase your ability to focus, to learn, to memorize, et cetera, which is why it's so horrible that they've taken, like, physical education out of most schools, but that's neither here nor there. Proper nutrition. I wanted to talk to you about that. And then the last thing that I just want to leave people with is that, and then we'll answer a question or two, is that I think that, there are different types of thinking, and this is not going to be a live stream right now about the different types of thinking, but odds are there are specific types of thinking that your business relies on you for, and the better that you do at that, the more successful you'll be. So if you have a direct response driven business, one type of thinking is like offer creation, right? And then what does it take to come up with great offers? Is it a function of creativity? Is it a function of creativity with research? Like, what is it exactly? And for each person, it's going to be different. But my point in bringing this up is that what I have found in consulting and businesses, coaching entrepreneurs, is that there are generally a few thinking skills that are more important to the individual I'm talking to than other thinking skills. And that if they were clear about that and they use that thinking skill each day, a little bit a day, they'd actually get better at that way of thinking. And so anything that you want to improve upon, if you practice on a consistent basis, is going to help you. So if you're a coach, I don't know if that's being like what it would be for you specifically. Maybe it's about being like picking up on things that people are saying, right? And so maybe spending a couple of minutes a day, like to hone your ability to do that, right? And if you're talking, one way to be able to be better at body language, for example, is totally different, but just to give you an example, is to turn off the TV, turn off the sound on the TV. And can you kind of estimate what's going on just based on the reactions of the bodies and stuff and the facial expressions and things? So my point though is that you are not, thinking is a skill. There are certain types of thinking that you need to do to be more effective in your business. And odds are is that you don't practice that specific type of thinking skill. And yet your income, your freedom, your families, depending on that type of thinking. So totally different than like what we're talking about here. However, if the type of focus that you need to do is the type of thinking that drives your business, you will certainly get better at being able to focus if you're better at that type of thinking, and you get better at that type of thinking by doing it more frequently. And I would suggest, like, when you're clear about it, and we'll do a live stream on this because I can walk people through what I do. I would spend time, like for me, I spend time in my journal doing that type of thinking on a very consistent basis. So with that, are there any questions? And if not, we can wrap it up. We already went long, and I'm trying to do a better job with that.
Well, let's do this. Anybody who's got questions, post them in a comment on wherever you're watching this video. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're all over the place. And we will gather all the questions up to answer in part 3, and we'll go more into things you can do, things you can try, things you can get that will also help with focus. That way we got plenty of time for questions.
Cool. And if you liked what we covered today, I'd give myself a 6 today. That's because I have my team in town and I've been so focused on our new platform and them that I didn't spend as much time as I normally would just consolidating my notes. But we'll be here next Friday.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Same time, same place.
And I guess if we get enough questions, we'll just answer questions. But if we don't answer questions, what are we thinking about doing? Are we going to go to number 3, or should we move topics for now?
I think we should do number 3. You've got, some great feedback.
Yeah, I have some other stuff as well.
Yes. And
and believe it or not, there were some other nootropics and smart drugs that I didn't have time to include. So there's even more that I can include there too.
And I think it would be great for us to go a little more into gamification, because I know you've got strategies for that. I've got strategies that work for me for that would be helpful for people to understand how they can use gamification to stay focused and have more fun getting stuff done in their business and in life.
And I don't know how, I'm by no means an expert in gamification. What I do notice is that things that are gamified get a lot more of my participation and get me to do more than I would do if there was no gamification. So that's why I applied it to my life a long time ago, because, if the jump rope app that I have uses gamification to get me to jump rope much more than I ever thought I would, why wouldn't I try and create that in my work environment too? And so, and actually, just to get the person who created like the best type of graphics for that, I'll pull it up and I'll show how I used it next time, is David Say, and it's SEAH. And if you type his name into a search engine, like he has like the emergent task planner and other things, you can just download them off his site. And some of them are really good for gamification.
Yeah, cool. Absolutely.
So what are you doing tomorrow night?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, well, one thing I'm probably doing tonight is ordering 2 of these that I haven't tried before.
Yeah, you got to do that. But what about tomorrow night? You got to know what's going on tomorrow night, don't you?
I don't have any plans.
UFC 273.
You're right. I have plans.
Yes. Hamzat.
How did I forget that?
He's 4-0. Right? He's only been hit twice in 4 fights. So quite the phenomenon. So I'm having a bunch of friends over. That's what we're doing. And tonight, no, that was last Saturday. Tonight we are going to a hibachi grill. Me, Mike Filsane, Matt, and Teddy, and Glenn Ledwell, and Donnie French, and his girlfriend Caitlin, and Kim. We're all going to go to a hibachi Japanese food. So
sounds like fun. Well, but okay, who have you got between Volkanovski and the zombie?
I would assume Volkanovski wins. I would assume Hamzat wins, and I would assume Jan beats Aljamain Sterling. I wouldn't mind Aljamain winning, but I just don't think he's going to.
We'll see.
Yeah, but I don't bet on sports because whenever I bet, I lose. So
Chael called it for zombies, so you know.
That'd be crazy, but who knows? Anyway, that's what I'll be doing tonight and tomorrow night. So I'm excited. It'll be a good weekend. All right.
Well,
We'll
thank
be here
you
next
for
Friday.
everybody who tuned in. Let us know what questions you've got, what topics you'd love to see us cover, and make sure you join the Facebook group, Apex Human. You can get the notes from last week. We'll get the notes from this week in there, and we will see you back again next week, same time, same place. That's it. Have an awesome weekend.